Let me call the meeting to order. I'll ask if anyone's recording, and then I will who's we?
CTV is recording.
And who is we? I'm sorry, I don't have my screen on right now. I'm looking for something. Ah, okay.
Mike King is coming on now.
Okay. I was just looking for the minutes for September 10th. I am not seeing them. Has anyone had the opportunity to review those minutes?
I don't recall ever receiving them.
No, I haven't gotten any.
I didn't see them either.
All right. Well, I can have comfort in knowing I didn't do something wrong. Let me get back to the meeting here.
Would they be on the website, town website?
I do know when I talked to Sonia last week, she did mention that she was behind doing minutes, so it might be the fact that they're not even ready yet.
Sure.
Ah, there you are. All right. The next item of business, if everybody's ready, is the approval not required plan for Dos Amigos Realty, Square Along the Road.
Good evening, Brad Bertolo, JC Engineering.
All right. Would you let,
Ken, if you would allow me to share my screen.
Sure.
Again, this is Brad Bertolo with JC Engineering on behalf of Dos Amigos. This project entails the subdivision under a Form A process on a piece of property adjacent to Squirrel Island Road. This project was before you 2 weeks ago, and there were questions regarding the access and creation of a right-of-way on the plan. So we submitted a revised plan to create 3 total lots with access off of Squirrel Island Road. The frontage, I will point out for the 3 parcels. It's actually two lots, each calculated with 180 feet of frontage along the existing traveled way of the road, following the cursor on the screen for lot 2, and then for lot 1, the same 180 feet, creating lot 1. Parcel 3 does have frontage along the traveled portions of Squirrel Island Road, but due to it being less than 180 feet, we're calling it a parcel and not a buildable lot under the current configuration. This plan should address the comments by the town engineer in regards to how the access and frontage is calculated. Again, this is shown as lot 1009C or 1009C on map 74. As shown on the plans, there are three circles of each with a diameter of 180 feet, meeting the lot shape factor. The frontage is calculated along the actual traveled portion of the way, as opposed to a proposed right-of-way at one point. So that should clarify the questions from the town engineer. And I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
If I may, George,
Sure.
I still don't see where we addressed the frontage where the lot deviates away from the traveled path. Down in the right corner, down by where rebar and ring of stones is located. Yeah, right there.
I don't think they're using that section any longer. But Brad, you can correct me if you answer that.
Correct. As you can see on the screen with my cursor, this being the lot line between lot 1 and 2, this line follows the actual traveled way and measures 180 feet. All this is within the locust property. This line that was originally in question is the common boundary between the subject property we're looking to subdivide and the abutter on this side. So this is no longer being considered frontage on this plan.
So we're looking at 71.92 together with 93.87.
And 14.21.
So your claim to frontage ends with the boundary marker right there. Yep, okay.
We have rights to this portion, but this does not have direct access onto the traveled portion, so that's no longer considered right-of-way frontage as the previous plan was.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Aren't you kind of shooting yourself in the foot by sacrificing a lot?
No, there's only just under 400 feet of actual frontage on the traveled way. And that was what Mr. Rowley had stated should be followed. So yes, it creates 2 lots and an unbuildable parcel of land.
This is Charlie. Could I jump in with a question?
Good. Was that you, Charlie?
Yes.
Yeah,
Could
I
I
can hear
ask
you.
a question? Just a question if I could.
Sure.
Does the area for lot 1 and 2 go to the solid line adjacent to lot 1009C? And if so, how do you claim the rights to that side of the road? I can see rights, but not ownership.
The land area contiguous eliminates all, does not include within the total lot area requirement, the area within this right-of-way easement. The road itself, the frontage is calculated along the edge of the road. The current parcel owns the entire traveled way. The parcel on the south side, or I guess west side of the traveled way, is the original lot 1009C, previously shown on a recorded plan signed by this board under a Form A process, that was a piece that would be conveyed to an abutter.
How do you get to extend your property line beyond the center line of Squirrel Island Road is my question. I have no problem with your frontage, but I'm just wondering how you can claim ownership to the other side of the road.
Well, this is, these two parcels are currently owned by the same person. So the boundary line between the two was established along the traveled way, the edge of the traveled way. So this owner actually owns in this portion of the property all the land on both sides.
Oh, does he own lot 1009C also?
Yes.
Okay, I'm fine with that then.
In the detail up above on the plan, it shows that, Charlie. If you have a copy of the plan.
Partial view on my screen.
Up above, there's a blown up detail.
Okay. So Brad, your client is 96 Realty LLC?
Yes, we're working on behalf of them.
Okay. No further questions, George.
Thank you. Anything else from the board?
Nope.
None
Nope.
from me, George.
Any action to be taken?
Motion to approve the revised plans as presented tonight.
Second.
Well, I can't read the date of the revision. 11/4.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Well, is there any opposed rather than a roll call? Hearing none, passed unanimously.
George, Charlie, again, just a nitpicking thing. So long as it gets in the minutes that you're endorsing an A&R and not approving the subdivision.
Yes, correct. Did you, the original motion, was that to approve? Well, you didn't say A&R in the motion, to approve an A&R. For,
Do you want me to amend the motion?
yeah, that would be good.
Okay. So I move to amend my original motion and approve an A&R.
Endorse.
Squirrel Island Road.
Endorse an A&R for map 74, lot 1009 and 1009C.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? No. Very good. Thank you, Charlie.
Welcome.
The next item on the agenda is approval not required plan for the First Congregational Church, Main Street, Gibbs Ave, map 61, lots 1173 and 1174.
Evening, this is Brian at GAF Engineering here for the Congregational Church.
Thank you. Go right ahead. Oh, that's the wrong one.
You all set?
Yep.
What the church is looking to do is divide this parcel of land, separating out the parsonage from the remainder of the church property. So the church proper and the building to the south, the function hall, and the associated parking lot area will go on lot 1174A, and that's a conforming lot with the appropriate frontage and area, and it meets as the zoning circle for the lot shape. The parsonage will be on a non-conforming lot, it has frontage, but it doesn't have adequate area. And now both of these buildings predate zoning, so this is an 81L application. I believe the church is just over 100 years old, and the parsonage is of age unknown, but it predates 1951. Don't know the intent. I imagine they're looking to convey the parsonage at some point. But we've put most of the land to go with the church and the function building containing all the associated parking areas. If I could answer any questions.
Does that driveway actually have a curb cut on Main Street? For the
The
parsonage?
parson, yes, it's right to the left. It's right to the left. I don't know if
I see it, but it seems to stop short. That's why I just wondered if there, I couldn't remember if there was a driveway there.
Oh, no, it does. We just don't show the actual pavement within Main Street, but it does have a driveway that goes out to Main Street. And
There's one in the back too.
What
Yes,
was that?
it connects to the larger church parking lot also.
George, Charlie again.
Mhm.
They have no problem with this plan. It meets the requirements for 81L.
Can someone educate me on 81L?
That's the subdivision definition in chapter 41. And in that portion, it says that if you have a parcel of land where there are 2 or more buildings on the land, you can divide it as long as the buildings predated the subdivision control law, which was 1951. And it's not considered a subdivision.
Is that residences, Charlie, or any building?
Any building.
The only thing that I see is you've labeled the street Tower Terrace off of Main Street, and isn't that called Stony Run at that point? I don't know that it makes any difference, but
Yeah, I'd have to double check that. I thought it was Tower Terrace, but maybe it is, yeah. I know
Is
we
that-
just did a plan on Tower Terrace as well.
I don't know if it's pertinent, but
The lot that's directly to the left of the newly created lot, isn't that that antique White House that was before us a little bit back about trying to put a second house on the lot?
yes. That same 81L, I think, I mean, could apply to that lot also with the carriage house, but any other questions?
Nope.
Is there a motion?
Richard, this one's yours.
Oh, a motion to approve to endorse the A&R for lot 1173-A and 1174-A on map 61.
Second.
Motion and a second. I didn't catch. Who made this second?
Mike?
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? So moved. And
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Last item in preliminary business is an approval not required plan for Birch Incorporated, Robert Brady, Great Neck Road. Map
Yep, this is
18,
Brian.
lot 1002A.
Yep, sorry to interrupt you. This is Brian at GAF again, here for Mr. Brady.
Mm-hmm.
What Mr. Brady is looking to do is to create 2 lots. You going to bring that up, Ken? Would you like me to bring it up?
If you can bring it up, you may be faster than I am.
Okay. See if I can find it. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so what Mr. Brady's looking to do is create these 2 lots out of the larger parcel, 1002A. They have, get out of that. They have adequate frontage on Great Neck Road and area, and they have the meet zoning with the lot shape. And we did have a discussion with Mr. Rowley regarding this one, regarding the frontage issue. And I think Charlie has agreed that the configuration we're showing for frontage here conforms to the frontage requirement under your zoning bylaw.
For everybody's
Is it-
information, I did meet some time ago with Brian in his office on this, and my concern was that they present evidence that shows that the frontage includes that piece to the right that goes down towards Squaws Path. Evidently, the old deed for the property in question went to the corner where there is a wall, and it called for it being the old layout of Great Neck Road. And then subsequently, they made a new layout of Great Neck Road, which is the curved lines that you see. There is no evidence that that original line was abandoned. So that's why I think they have the right to claim that frontage that they showed there.
Yeah, so we have the note here that these dashed lines refer to the 1909 or the layout prior to the 1909 layout, which is this curved line, as Charlie mentioned, but this area, these dashed lines here, this was never discontinued. So it's still part town property and would be considered frontage.
And it's also kind of depicts the traveled way to Squaws Path, does it not?
Yeah, it's pretty close to the existing improved way, correct?
Any questions from the board?
I have a question. It's an A&R, not a subdivision. So the frontage is adequate because it was created at the time that the lot was created, even though part of the frontage is not shown on this plan. But does that apply to 2 lots being developed or just 1?
No, the conforming frontage is shown on this plan.
Yeah, you have the
is,
frontage, but does
yes.
the corner that goes on to Squaws Path, did the original road go to that corner, Charlie? Is that what Charlie said? So that's why it's considered part of the existing frontage when the lot was created?
Yeah, do you see that detail on lot 1002C? The short dashed lines depict the layout of Great Neck Road prior to 1909.
Yep.
No discontinuance.
Okay. Yep, that's all.
Anything else?
Looking for a motion, George?
That would work.
Make a motion that we endorse the A&R submitted tonight for lots 1002B and 1002C on map 18.
Second.
Richard, include 102A in your motion too, because that's part of it.
And 1002A, sorry, thank you.
And this is as an A and R, not a subdivision?
Endorsed as an A&R.
Okay.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Hearing
All
no
right,
one,
thank you all.
motion approved. Next, excuse me. Hope you're all wearing masks when I cough. Next item is a continued public hearing for site plan review for 140 Tyonet Road, Borrego Solar Systems.
Sure. Good evening. Stacy Minahan with Beals and Thomas, and Zach Farkas with Borrego is also on the line. For 140 Tohonet, we will be requesting a continuance, although we're happy to talk through anything that the board may want, especially in the context of the 150 Tohonet project, for which we had submitted revised materials. So I'll take a second there, but can go into a summary of where we were at with 150 and what we've recently submitted, if that's the board's pleasure.
Well, short of taking testimony, well, we are open so at this point. So what is the board's pleasure? Do you want an update?
I would like a brief update.
Sure. And so for 150, I'm planning on going through a fair amount of detailed information. For 140 Tohonet, we're working on revising those plans now. We just couldn't get both sites done within the time frame needed. So you will be seeing revised plans from us on 140 Tohonet in the near future. And we look to continue to your next meeting for 140 Tohonet, which is the southerly of the two solar sites. For 150 Tohonet, I have a mini presentation about what we've submitted, and Charlie had also provided some peer review comments today as well that we were hoping to talk through. So I have nothing specific on 140 Tohonet beyond where we were the last time we met with the board.
Okay.
And the other, and you're seeking to continue on 140, correct?
On 140, correct.
So next meeting is find my calendar here.
Next meeting is the 23rd. November 23.
Mm-hmm.
To that date, and Ken will send you an email. I think this might have been slated for a decision deadline of tomorrow, so we'll email requesting an extension to that if that's the case for 140 Tohonet.
Good.
Stacy, any chance we can get those plans a little quicker than this one? I only got plans for 150 on Thursday.
We will do our best, Charlie, and maybe we can touch base with you once we see where we're at. I know the Borrego team and I will be meeting on Monday to discuss status. I'm sorry, on Wednesday to discuss status, so I could update you thereafter.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I look to continue the public hearing site plan review for 140 Tyonet Road to November 23rd.
Second?
Thank you. Thought my mic was off. All in favor?
Aye.
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 You okay, George?
Yeah.
Just try to
All right.
knock my phone line so I won't get anything.
And what do we, 150 you're going forward with, is that?
Yep, Correct. So 150, forgive me for looking down. I just want to refer to my notes so that I don't forget to convey anything, and certainly let me know if you have any questions. Ken, may I share the screen?
Sure. Do you want to put up your plan?
Sure, that would be great. Of course, it always takes me a minute to figure out how to share my screen.
You need a big hammer.
Right. Okay, so in a moment you should see the plan set for 150 Tohonet, which I just figured I'd have up for reference as we're talking. So 150 Tohonet, as the board may remember, although it has been a while since we talked in detail about this project, we had submitted the original plans and received town feedback from the board. At that time, the peer review was held until we could revise the plans based on the feedback we received from the planning board. The planning board did conduct a site visit, and we submitted and presented profile views to address the concern that had been raised about potential views from the neighborhoods across Tohonet Pond. So I think that's all settled. We also had previously discussed at that time increasing the limit of work from essentially no setback along Tohonet Road to a 150-foot setback along Tohonet Road. And we ended up at 175 feet set off of Tohonet Road. So in the site plans, we submitted revised site plans, revised stormwater hydrology, and then just a transmittal letter most recently to the board, and that's what's reflected on those plans. Borrego had also committed to contributing the value of the timber harvest to the town as mitigation funding. Although there has been a decrease in clearing from what was originally proposed by about 13 acres, they are maintaining that same mitigation commitment for the funding. So that's sort of where we were. Now, where we are, as I said, we submitted revised information to address those, the increased setback mainly, and the visual information. The plans were also revised based on the final wetland boundaries that were agreed to with the Conservation Commission. So I guess with that, that's my brief update as to where we're at and what we've submitted. I have up on my screen, so this is 150 Tohonet. This is that cranberry bog, the active cranberry bogs to the north, Tohonet Road here, Tohonet Pond is over here. And so you can see the main change is that increased setback along the edge of Tohonet Road. We also, I should say, did try and take comments that we received on the 27 Charge Pond Road project, and we tried to apply them proactively to this project to reduce the overall number of comments. So I'll pause there and see if there's any initial questions, and then would appreciate if the board doesn't mind running through Charlie's comments, because there's a few that will require your input in terms of direction to proceed.
What was the Conservation Commission's input and impact to this plan?
It was fairly minor for the Tohonet sites. There were a few changes to flagging, I want to say on this middle wetland here, and perhaps even on this wetland, some tweaks to, you know, where the wetland line went, but nothing particularly notable on this or the 140 Tohonet site.
Well, Dave's letter seems a little bit more doom and gloom compared
What's Dave's letter?
I'm looking in your packet. It's dated July 9th.
From Dave Pichette?
Yes.
In which packet?
In the one that's attached to tonight's meeting.
I don't know that we have that letter.
Oh, I mean, it's in the documents if you want to pull it up, but he seems to have some concerns about the amount of clear cutting, the isolated wetlands, a potential vernal pool, and that he was holding his final decision based on the results of the town engineer's peer review.
So I can say in terms of the wetland resource areas, the vernal pools, the limits of the boundaries, that July 9th was before he was out on site with us to review them. So he has since conducted that review. And we are also before the Conservation Commission, similar to 27 Charge Pond Road, concurrent with your review. Honestly, I forget I think we're back before them on November 18th was their next meeting for Conservation Commission will be presenting these revised
Yeah,
plans.
I think that if things have changed, that we might want to update the letter to a more timely assessment of the project.
So when you, and I apologize, Mr. King, when you reference the materials, is that something that's available on the website?
Yeah, that's where I've been getting everything that you're showing on the screen. I'm getting on the Wareham website under projects.
Yeah, I can certainly take a look at that, although that's nothing that I hadn't heard directly from Dave himself when the projects were first filed. So similar to 27 Charge Pond Road, the overall limit of clearing has been reduced. Here it's been reduced by 13 acres. The commission for 27 Charge did ultimately approve the plan, and I think this is similar and has far fewer wetland considerations than 27 Charge. So I believe that I can't speak for the commission, obviously. I haven't met with them since we've submitted this revised plan, but I'm hopeful that we've addressed the majority of their comments. And certainly in terms of the vernal pools, he did look at them. I believe he agreed with our assessment as to which one was a vernal pool and which one was not functioning as a vernal pool. And then, like I said, we've agreed on the boundaries in the field, and that's reflected on this plan.
Okay. Well, it'd probably be a good idea to get those comments from Dave included in the package so we've got accurate information.
Okay, so you're looking for an updated letter from
Oh. Did you put out that fire or what? Is that something significant that we're supposed to be listening to? Oh, you had that copy?
I'm not sure who's speaking, if I should pause or.
I got it covered.
Okay. I don't remember taking a caller. So Mr. King and the board, I guess, are you looking, is it typical that Dave then gives you an updated letter as his review of the project and our coordination with the commission proceeds? Is that,
Yeah, I mean, just so there's something included in the package that is echoing what you're saying, Dave has been telling you, is what you're telling us now and what I'm reading in the letter that's in the package are two different things.
Yeah.
I did see a call that came in simultaneously with the call someone else received that Sandra Slavin, chair of Concom, called in. Did you get that call, Ken?
She's on the line.
Yeah. I don't know if she has anything she wants to share with us. Or...
You can speak if you want to. Thank you. I just want to set Conservation has approved the 27 Charge Pond Road and continue the 2 hearings for the other 2 properties. And I've been working very closely with Stacy and company, and we feel we're close to signing off when the final plans are delivered to us. But Dave Bichette's been very strong about the wetlands, the vernal pools, the trash sites that we found at 27 Charge Pond Road, and they've been developers have been very good about cleaning up that debris site. But I will speak to Mr. Bichette about getting something. I can find a July 9th memo. Is that what you're talking about?
That's what I'm looking at.
And that's only for 27 Charge Pond Road. It didn't deal with the other 2 sites.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say, because it's included in the
And
150
everything on
file.
there everything on 27 Charge Pond Road has been addressed and cleaned up. I see nothing in my folders for the other 2 sites for the letter from Pichette.
The letter I'm looking at, Sandy, is specific to 150.
Yeah, it's addressed for that particular project, not Charge Pond.
I'm not finding that in my folders at all for that one.
Yeah, well,
I will
like I
see
said,
Mr. Bichette.
Do you expect to finish up the review of 150 Chihonet on your next meeting?
Yeah, I think so. Right, Stacy, are we good for that?
Hope so. I think we've addressed everything from the commission's perspective, certainly that had been conveyed to us before. for 150 Tana, and we
Yeah.
provided the revised plan, so Dave, should have everything he needs.
Yep. Yes,
So is it safe to,
but I will speak to Ms. Ed about. I'm looking for that letter you have, and I can't find it in my folder, and I'll speak to Mr. Bichette about it tomorrow.
Hey
I don't
guys,
have
Zach Farkas here. Just while you were talking, I pulled up the memo, and the date July 9th leads me to believe that that was Dave's original review, and it did not incorporate the site visits we've had and the changes we've made. So I think we can leave it as we'll confirm with Conservation and specifically Dave that the newest plans meet his expectations and the Conservation Commission's expectations. But I do just think this memo is dated. It no longer reflects the plan in front of you. The plan in front of you reflects, as Stacy and Ms. Slavin just said, we're very close to the finished product.
might I suggest that we reserve our comments tonight to the site plan, and we could continue and incorporate any changes from conservation at our next meeting, probably.
Certainly. Any other questions before I run through Charlie's comments? Okay.
Doesn't seem so.
All right. Stop me if anything comes up. So, and do you all have a copy of Charlie's comment letter as well?
I do.
Okay, excellent. So comment 1 is acknowledged. It was kind of a summary of the information submitted. Comment 2 deals with the 50-foot zoning setback. And in essence, I read that bylaw requirement. So we are proposing tree cutting within 50 feet of the property line along this eastern perimeter in particular. You can actually see this dashed line is the 50-foot zoning setback. So from that 50-foot setback to the property line, we are proposing tree cutting, but no stumping, and for the area to be allowed to revegetate so that it will act as a vegetated buffer. So our read of the bylaw is that complies with the requirement for a 50-foot vegetated buffer. And so I'm sure there's discussion, and Charlie may have something that he'd like to weigh in on as well, but that was the first item we were hoping to discuss with the board.
Yeah, I'll weigh in on that if you don't mind. I don't see this as any different than any other project that requires a 50-foot buffer. It does say anything that abuts a residential zone, and you are in the R60 zone. So when it talks about a vegetated buffer, I don't think it leaves the intent that you would be able to clear cut it and just leave the stumps. That's not really what's intended there. It's intended to be a buffer, and once you clear it all out, there is no buffer.
So our thought is that 50-foot will become revegetated with the shrub material that will fill in. I think on some past projects, that 50-foot buffer has been addressed even as kind of a loamed and seeded area. I think on one particular project I'm thinking of, granted there were, minimal trees in that area to begin with, but it wasn't necessarily a, shrub or treed area.
I don't think it's ever the intention to eliminate the trees in that buffer zone.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Charlie.
Is there, I guess, since it hasn't necessarily been treated as a no-touch zone in the past, is it something where the board would, and so in Borrego's experience, and I don't want to speak for you, Zach, but what's been conveyed to me is that when you go in and clear but leave the stumps and let the area revegetate, that it does pop up pretty significantly and have some significant vegetation. Is it something where supplemental plantings to create a more dense vegetated buffer would allow the board to consider that tree clearing within the 50-foot? Because the trees are obviously an issue for the shading, which is why the tree cutting is proposed.
Was this a late breaking discovery? Why wasn't this discussed earlier on?
I think it was. We just never got, you'll have to remember, this was the first time we got kind of Charlie's comments on this. We decided to hold his comments the whole time. And I think the way I have always looked at projects in Wareham is the 50-foot setback from a property line is not a place to put equipment or stormwater and whatnot. And if you recall, we had a pretty intense focus on a certain area for the Charge Pond project where we wanted to put a detention basin within the 50-foot, and we ended up finding a solution that didn't need it. It was my thought that I could clear to the property line and then let that area revegetate, and within a year, that would be a perfectly reasonable vegetated buffer. Additionally, all the land to the east that Stacy's cursor's on is Makepeace land, is all forested Makepeace land. So I think we could certainly squeeze the system by 50 feet, or we could do another A&R plan to push that lot line to the east by 50 feet. But I guess it was genuinely my read of the bylaw that I could clear to the property line and then allow it to revegetate, and you'd have a nice 50-foot buffer there. As Stacy said, the purpose of us doing that is to clear the large trees to eliminate shading, and then you'd have a really nice, thick, revegetated buffer. I think anyone who's cleared trees sees how quickly those stumps regenerate. But again, as Stacy said at the outset, we're looking for not only kind of some feedback from Charlie on his review of the bylaw, as well as the board's opinion on this thing before we put pen back to paper.
Yeah.
I don't know how familiar you might be about white pine, but they don't regenerate on the stump. The only ones that do would be oaks or maples. And it certainly will not be
Not quick.
here. The only project that I can remember where some clearing was allowed was against the setback on Route 25 for a property that's north of that. And in that particular case, the only thing that was allowed to be cut was anything that was over 40 feet or possibly 50 feet. Don't remember the number. But anyway, it was selective clearing, cut on the stump. Everything else was left. But there was never any indication that you could cut everything within the buffer zone and expect within 12 months it's going to regenerate, because it never would.
Yeah.
Trying to make a buffer would take 10, 20 years at least.
Yeah, I agree, Charlie. I recently did some brush clearing on my own property. And here we're a year later, and the area where I cleared the brush is pretty much unchanged. I mean, you've got a couple little saplings that have kind of sprouted out, but certainly not revegetated by any stretch of the imagination. So I don't really 100% buy into a year later it's all going to be green and fluffy.
If you just did selective cutting of the tall pine trees, what would be left there?
That was going to be my next question, but I held it because, in my opinion, selective clearing along such a long run, I mean, it's going to be really hard to not destroy the undergrowth taking out those trees. So I wouldn't feel comfortable saying to you guys, if what you're really worried about is that buffer, I wouldn't feel totally comfortable saying, oh yeah, I can selectively clear that and not destroy the whole thing anyways. So I'm hesitant to commit to. Sorry?
Is there anything else there besides pine?
There's a mix, but it's predominantly pine. I think I could open up that forestry report we did. That would give me a little bit more indication, but it sounds like I'm hearing kind of the opinions from you guys, and I can talk to my construction crew a bit about the pragmatic impact of selective clearing, and we could put a note along that 50-foot buffer that says selective clearing only X size trees. But like, I don't love it off the top of my head.
I just cleared an entire lot last weekend myself, and I don't think we should clear any trees out of the 50-foot zone. That's my position.
I agree. I mean, the 50 feet's the 50 feet regardless.
Okay, I appreciate that. So that's just, truthfully, that's not how we read the bylaw, but I don't think we need to arm wrestle over it any longer. I'll go back with my team and we'll decide whether we're going to move the property line 50 feet to the east or if we're going to move the project line 50 feet to the west. I'm not sure what's preferable to us, but I hear the message loud and clear. No touching the 50 foot.
Well, I think I kind of lean toward it's not a no touch. It's a buffer zone that could be replanted after the large trees are taken out.
Well, that's what Stacy had brought up. I think that's a different discussion. If we would come in there and use some fast growing seed or something like that with the stumps, I would certainly rather go that direction, but I want to make sure the board feels comfortable with that totally.
Would there be any cutting on the adjacent property? Because you're going to go from 70-foot trees roughly to a 50-foot.
We were not planning on taking any trees off those two make-piece lots to the east.
Okay.
And we still wouldn't. Theoretically, we'd just move that property line 50 feet to the east, and then the project would look the same as it looks here, just with that kind of lightning bolt shaped parcel line scooched over to the east.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, that was our read, obviously, in terms of we're reading it differently as a requirement for a 50-foot vegetated buffer. And then with the flexibility that's granted to the board in the bylaw, in terms of considering the, adjacent uses and landowners, given that it was make-piece forested land. I guess we were hopeful that there might be a solution to allow that 50-foot, but.
What doesn't give the board any discretion to make it less than 50.
No, and I'm not saying that it should be less than 50, but I think it's a difference between treating it as a no touch versus as a 50-foot bed.
It's impossible to touch large trees without doing a lot of destruction to the vegetation zone.
Right. Yeah, that's why.
That's what I'm worried about.
Potentially replanting or.
Replanting is not replacing 70-foot trees.
Right. Although depending on the here, it doesn't really matter at all because it's make-piece next door and it's forested. But in terms of view sheds, it's probably better to have a lower shrubbier 50-foot zone as opposed to, tall pines. But again, here, I think that's neither here nor there for this context, but.
To just give one further piece of information on the partial clearing or thinning. In that particular instance, each of the trees that was over 50 feet was actually marked in the field by the surveyor. So he went out and marked every tree that was over 50 feet. It was inspected, and then they were approved for removal. But every other tree and all the underbrush was kept in place.
Yeah, thank you, Charlie. I appreciate that. I just don't feel like that's a great use of our resources or your time, where I think the easier solutions are kind of those two I presented. If the board's not willing to allow us to simply clear the trees to the 50-foot, allow it to revegetate, which is the message I'm hearing, then we will either move the property line or we'll move the project. Did both of those solutions kind of solve the problem you guys are looking for?
Well, I think past input has said that they like the move away from Tyhonet Road. So I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, they'd be more inclined to move the property line over.
Yeah.
Either way, you're going to lose trees, but.
We're not going to, we won't touch, regardless of what I do, I won't touch the buffer along Tyhonet Road. It's not an if or then. I'll keep the 175-foot that I've already committed to and simply squeeze the project. I just truly am caught off guard a little bit on the read, which is fine. But I just don't know what the Makepeace would like us to do. So I'll confer with Makepeace and we'll make an update to the plan. regarding
Like,
that 50
you
foot
could
along the
squeeze
eastern
it.
boundary.
You could squeeze it west to get the 50 feet, but that doesn't solve the tree issue, right?
No, it would. I would simply just lose, if you imagine that 50 foot setup, I'd lose a fair amount of the acreage. Not a ton. My guess would be it's about 3 to 4 acres if you were to measure out that strip. So that may be the easier solution than moving the lot line, or presenting the board with an A&R plan to adjust the lot line may be the easier solution. I don't want to tell you exactly what I'm going to do and then do the opposite. It'll be one of those two things.
Just out of curiosity, what's the length of that easterly boundary? Any idea?
I didn't catch that, Charlie.
What is the
Stacy,
length?
if you go to the tree clearing plan, there should be a call out for that 50 foot. Yeah, there it is right there. It's it's 3.03 acres total. I know, Charlie, you asked for the linear distance, but that's the acreage. So we would simply reduce tree clearing by another 3.x acres to reduce the system size.
Did I understand Did I understand correctly? You don't really need to clear all 50 feet?
No, we have to. I mean, I guess have to, we can't just have the 50-foot trees right up against the fence. It would just be a poor design from a solar insulation standpoint. And so the 50 feet was kind of an okay setback. That lot line running southwest to northeast is not great from a shading standpoint. So that's where the 50 foot.
I'm not suggesting that you not clear to the fence. Could you clear halfway to the lot line and accomplish the same result?
I think we'd still be in the same situation where we'd be clearing 25 feet and there'd only be a 25 foot no touch. But I think if the board's suggesting that as a solution, it would certainly help.
No, I'm just offering that. I'm looking for a solution.
Yeah.
Honestly, George, I think his original solution made more sense to just move the lot line the 50 feet that they need. I mean, it's all Makepeace's property anyway. That way he can clear the 50 feet away from the panels that he needs for shading, and we still end up with a 50-foot buffer.
No, you're still cutting 3.5 acres of trees, whether it's there
Well,
or 50 feet over from there.
We're already into this for 76 acres. Another 3 acres, is that going to tilt the scales?
No, that was my point. I didn't want to see, well, if the lot line did move over, the trees would remain there, so.
Yep. Well, like I said, why don't you guys let me take that back? I'll look at both situations. Makepeace may not even want to move that lot line. They just created that A&R plan, so to do another one seems a little bit tedious. So I want to make sure it's worth the board's time on the A&R, where it just might be easier for me to reduce the clearing a little bit more. And to Mr. King's point, we've already taken it. We've gone from 75 down to just a little over 50. So we've made some good concessions, and I have to just think about the project on the big picture to make sure I don't hurt it too much. But I think that's enough on that point. I think we hear you guys loud and clear.
All right, thank you. So the next comment, it was number 3. It relates to the southerly portion of the project where it abuts the power line, and essentially commenting, if I'm understanding it correctly, that there could be take a 2.5-ish acre area out of the proposed arrays to the south here to avoid potential views coming along to Honnet Road, and then once you're in the easement, looking across the cleared easement to the southerly portion of the array. And this is something where Tohonet Road at this location is a private road. It's not public here. So screening from Tohonet Road seems not applicable. And also just wanted to know, it's indicated in the letter as a 2.6 acre solar panel reduction, but it would actually end up being significantly more than that, because you'd pull the panels back, but then you'd also have to have the associated clearing pulled back as well. So it would, potentially double that area, and given the kind of reductions that the project has already seen, we certainly, Borrego, I think, would prefer to keep this area as it is, which to me makes sense given the site context. So, hoping to get Charlie's feedback and the board's input on that item as well. Or Charlie, if I misrepresented the comment, also please feel free to correct me.
No, I have no problem with your explanation, except that it makes no difference whether it's a public way or a private way. You were able to get A&R plans approved on the fact that Tyonet Road was a way that was of sufficient width and access. So I don't think that's the issue. I think that this deals with the visibility issue again, and the section of, I think it's 591 of the bylaw that states that the purpose is to minimize the impacts of scenic, natural, and historic resources. So when you're looking across a 200-foot wide easement for the power line that's been stripped out, has no trees, you're going to be going from an elevation of roughly 63 at Tyonet Road on a complete upgrade once again to the high point, which would be the southeast corner of roughly 90 and above. So again, the same as what you had at Charge Pond Road, you're going to be looking at a side slope and seeing everything that's possibly visible. And I think that the visualization, again, is an important issue. And I think that it would be appropriate for the public's view not to have to look at that. I think they've voiced their concerns enough on places like Toby Road that it's something that the planning board needs to take into consideration, and that's why I've made it a mention.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Charlie. Again, not to beat a dead horse, but you've got a bird's eye view from Red Pine Lane along that corridor where the power lines are now. So you would be staring directly at that solar array from that neighborhood.
We can certainly take a look at that, and I can even try and pull up the profiles. I don't recall where we did a profile along here, if it was further to the north, because I know we were trying to get to the closest point on the neighborhood. But I don't know that the visual view from the neighborhoods, Charlie, I don't think that was your comment, right? It was that, correct me if I'm wrong, but coming along the private Tyonet Road, looking across, it would be visible? Or is your comment that it's going to be visible from the neighborhoods?
Yeah, any passerby on Tyonet Road is going to see that whole thing.
Right, but on Tyonet Road, not across the pond.
Wow. You will
not for across the pond, no.
You will see it from across the pond at the former residence where I owned and the next door neighbor where we met. Those two have an absolute bird's eye view of where the power lines cross the pond and disappear onto that piece of property. So if you've got solar panels that are going to be butting right up against that easement for the power lines, they're going to be staring directly at them.
Sure, and maybe it makes sense if I can just take a minute, I'll look and see if I have those profiles to see what was pulled up, because I thought we had kind of said, so that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think anything has changed in the southern part. We were always coming, the design always came kind of south to the right of way, and I thought we had kind of alleviated the concerns about the profile views. So I'd just like to see if I have them available to see where it was taken from. And Charlie, I think I heard that your concern was more of a Tyonet Road. So I think it's two different aspects. Maybe if I break it down, if we could first discuss Tyonet Road and whether or not there is an obligation to screen from a private road, that the public is not going, setting aside the neighborhoods for a minute, but assuming for a moment that it's only from Tyonet. If there's an obligation to screen from this private road that the public, I don't believe, would have access to,
It's a way that's been open to the public for a long, long time. I don't think it's ever been gated by Makepeace Company. It might not be a public way in the sense that it's a town way, but it has been open to the public for a long time.
I think it's gated just to the right of way, Charlie.
We'll say it is gated.
There are two.
Guy got stuck out there.
Sorry, there are two gates on Tyonet Road. There's one up by the right of way, and there's another just north of the kayak launch. So anyone trying to get past the kayak launch, which is well to the south, would have to essentially be going through the gate.
I don't think that changes my opinion as to the fact that it should be visible, not be visible from it. It's still away. And the zoning bylaw makes no distinction between one or the other.
Well, can I ask the board's opinion about Tohonet Way? I really think we're pushing it by asking to put trees there to screen it from Tohonet Road. I think we haven't talked about that the whole time.
Charlie's comment is well founded, but you're still not going to change my opinion of the view from across the pond to where the power lines cross the pond and disappear into the land.
Well,
There's 2 to 3 homes right there on the corner of where that neighborhood ends. The power lines directly abutted my former property. So you're not going to convince me that they can't see those. They're going to see them. So even if your argument about Tohonet Way being private, that's all well and good. You may find that you're possibly in the right on that side of that particular argument, but it's not going to change the fact that the people across the pond are going to have to stare at those solar panels.
Yeah, I thought we had put that question to rest.
That we were discussing 140.
we had discussed
No, we provided
150 for the view analysis when I was at the planning board hearing discussing it.
If you bring up the view analysis, you're going to see the line of sight goes across the pond onto the 140 project. It doesn't address the 150 project.
So we did address the 150, but we did not, this area was not previously, that southerly area was not previously raised as a question. So the view we took was what we thought would be, most possibly able to be seen. And that's the view that we did.
And on that particular display that you have, indicate where the right of way is for the.
So the right of way is here to the south.
For the high tension lines?
For the high tension lines. This is where, I don't know if you can see my mouse. There's a faint double dash line that crosses at the narrow part of the pond here. So they go off screen here because we hadn't done a profile view here, as this hadn't been raised as a concern. And then 140, where you can actually see the power lines.
Right. So if you look at where your line of sight begins, the 150 project isn't even depicted in this. So it comes across the pond and it completely ignores where the high tension lines enter the property. So if you change your line of sight and you raise it up 20 degrees, you're going to be staring directly at right there. You're going to be structuring directly at those solar panels where they meet the right of way.
That's not where they are, though. If you look at where Stacy's cursor is right now, Stacy, can you put your cursor just a little bit to the left on that, just to the west of Tohonet Road, south of the right of way? So all those trees are right there. You'd have to look through all those trees to get the right angle to look northwest up into our site. We really went over this a lot.
Where's the lowest corner of the solar panels?
Here.
Right there.
That's the very lowest
That's
corner.
the area.
Everything else goes up and to the right.
Everything goes up.
That's right.
And 175 feet off Tohonet Road, correct. So I know we didn't have one view that showed both projects, but we did, just to clarify, this was for 140, and then we did a different view at the concern point that had been conveyed to us for 150. So I know.
Well, that's a different neighborhood. That's Pond Edge.
Right, understood. There were two different neighborhoods that had concerns raised for view sheds. So this southern part of 150 is cut off on the 150 profile, but if you go up, as Zach noted, to the 140, the 150 project is here, north of the power lines. And the view shed across here, this, knoll is a wooded area, and then you have Tohonet Road, and then 175 feet off Tohonet Road as well.
You're not going to be able to see up in that project from across the pond.
That would be subject to whatever the contours are west of Tyonet Road and compare that to what the elevation of the units will be in the array area. I think at the high point, which is southeast corner, the elevation is 90.
Right.
And he's 100 elevation, not too far away. So you're going to come down to roughly 70 feet, I believe, at the very far west corner of the array. Now, what are the contours on the west side of Tyonet Road?
I'd have to, let me see if they're on our,
Basically a slope down to the pond.
right. I mean, I can get to the grading and see if we have some LiDAR, if there's some LiDAR on the,
Given the vegetation that was there when we visited, you couldn't really see Tyonet Road. I mean, other than one little narrow gap where the power lines go across.
right. And this is a good view of that area we were just talking about. Obviously, the neighborhoods don't show up well, but here's Tohonet Pond. Here's that wooded area, the easement, Tohonet Road, and then the offset with the solar panels here. So you can see it's kind of where I was pointing on the aerial. In terms of the elevations west of Tohonet Road, it's, 57 just west of Tohonet Road at this location. And then, as Chairman Barrett said, sloping down toward the pond.
The eastern side of Tyonet Road, that was clear cut several years ago and is growing back. Is that the intent, to leave that alone, let it revegetate?
Immediately along Tohonet Road?
Yes, between Tyonet Road and your solar array.
Yes.
The cut for Tyonet Road was widened substantially several years ago.
Yep. Borrego is not proposing any clearing beyond the limit that, or, closer to Tohonet Road than what's depicted on the plans.
So the scrub and vegetation that's replaced the cutting will remain?
We're not touching anything along Tohonet Road except for those little cut areas where the roads, our access and construction roads, meet Tohonet Road.
Yeah, okay. And that's
So is there other feedback from the board regarding the question of obligation to screen from Tohonet Road? Or any other items related to this?
I'll make a comment. It was my understanding after the site visit and looking at the profiles that from over on Red Pine, looking across the pond up to the power lines, that there would be no solar panels visible. Going up to the southern edge of 150 from that point right there, Stacy. I was convinced of that after the site visit and being up there and the 2 site visits that I've done. And if that's not the case, then I have issue. I don't want people in the development across the pond to look up that hill and see solar panels. But I will also say this: it seems odd to me that we're working hard to maintain the beautiful view of the power lines by not distracting additionally with solar panels. So I don't get a lot of heartburn about this, but I was definitely under the impression that there would be no solar panels visible from Red Pine Lane.
Is it reasonable to put a condition in that we revisit this after construction to see what's necessary?
Yeah, but what happens? How do you undo it?
By additional plantings.
That's a reasonable. Go ahead, Ken.
It'll be too late. You'll never replace what vegetation will be cut off that slope.
No. You can plant arborvitaes from now till the cows come home. You're not gonna shield those solar panels.
Well, my impression is it's a very narrow window that you may possibly be able to see this from Red Pine, and it wouldn't take a lot of screening to address that.
Well, I mean, that's your opinion, George, and I value your opinion. Put to a vote, I am going to disagree, only because I have carnal knowledge of the property. If I still own that house, I'd be standing on your desk right now.
Michael, I thought we had put that to bed. Correct? Where did I get off the rails?
Because this lower portion that they're showing where it abuts the power lines was not addressed with this line of sight. If you look at the two line of sight maps, the one for 150, there's no line of sight done from Red Pine Lane. It was done from Pond Edge Trail.
Hey guys, I was really convinced that we wouldn't see the site with the two sight lines we've done. I'm really convinced you're not going to see it now from that same elevation point. Why don't I just run a third elevation for the next meeting to prove it? I feel very strongly that the trees to the west of Tohonet Road are going to block anything from that northeasternmost home looking northeast across the pond through the trees. I don't think you're going to see it. So why don't we just I think you guys are pretty happy with the profile views we put together. Why don't we just put a new profile view from Red Pine Lane looking at the 150 Tohonet Road project, and we'll prove it. We'll prove the case or we won't. And if I can't come back to you with a clean elevation plan like we provided, like Stacy's got up on the screen, then I'll come back to you with reduced tree clearing to the south. But my confidence is as high as it was before.
That's fine. If you can prove the fact, then you've proven it and my argument goes away.
All right. I'm happy to do that.
So that will address hopefully the concerns from the neighborhood, but to revisit, I guess, if we could get direction on the screening from Tohonet Road itself from the board.
So Charlie is right. There will be a window as you cross the utility right-of-way driving north. When you look out over your right shoulder, you're going to be able to look up into the system for whatever brief period of time, depending on how fast you're running or walking or driving. So it's our belief that we don't need to 100% screen the project from Tohonet Road. I think the 175-foot setback we placed off of Tohonet Road from the very northernmost portion of the project of 150 Tohonet to the very southernmost of 140 Tohonet. We did that all to resolve the views of the Red Pine Lane and other community just to the west. So it was never our intent to screen the project from Tohonet Road. And I think as you continue north on Tohonet Road, there's two more projects up there that we certainly didn't spend any time screening from the road and no time discussing it either.
We're trying to fix that problem moving forward into the future.
From Tohonet Road by 175 feet. Some places.
Sorry, Charlie, I didn't hear that.
I say, but you did screen the project from Tohonet Road by a buffer of 175 feet.
Exactly, not for the purpose of Tohonet Road, because Mr. King and others asked us to make darn sure that the project could not be seen from the existing residences along the western coast of the pond, western shore, I should say, of the pond.
Okay, so if you do a profile line from those particular residences and crossing the point of the pond where it looks like it's a little projection just south of the power line, running in a straight line.
Yeah, I see. Exactly. Yep, right there.
Just trying to see it on your screen.
Stacy, maybe pull up the 140 Tohonet view again.
Yep.
We're going to bend that line, Charlie, up to about, call it 2 o'clock, maybe 2:30.
Probably would be a little bit better.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just shooting from the hip here. We'll do it to we can do both of those homes.
What's the do not disturb depth around the pond itself?
We're well over 100 feet from the pond itself.
I know you are, but what is the do not disturb generally around a pond like that?
Do you mean
No,
like
it's
the
100 feet.
commission?
Say that again?
Conservation?
You mean what
You mean?
Conservation Commission requires?
Correct.
So they have a 50-foot minimum no touch for commercial projects and a 30-foot no touch for residential.
I know
Okay.
Dave Pritchett had been out to that neighborhood, and it was, she's right, it was a 30-foot no touch and a 100-foot buffer.
Do you have more comments to address, Stacey?
I do. So on that one, it sounds like we'll do the profile view, and assuming that that proves out or we otherwise address it. If it doesn't, then this item will be settled. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're going to give a better profile to address the concern.
Yep, from the neighborhood, but not screening to home. Okay. Let's see. Comment 4 addresses the 2 access driveways to the north that are proposed off of Tonnant Road. So one here and one here. This is a steeper gradient into the site. So Borrego would really like to keep these for a few reasons. I think safe access and construction flow. It makes a lot of sense to have these 2 access points off of Tonnant Road. Also, in terms of overall gravel length, it's less than if there was a singular access point and then a cross connector, to make it to the other side of the ring road. And then again, because we had been considering Tonnant Road as kind of a private road that's a bog road and used for cranberry operations, we didn't see these two access points as a significant impact. So it will be very helpful if we can keep these 2. I think Charlie had just asked, why there were 2 proposed.
I did ask the question, and then I asked whether or not it would be possible to connect one of them internally. Once you get the project completed, why do you need 2? I mean, there's going to be very infrequent trips to the site, I would assume.
That's right, Charlie. I think anything's possible, certainly. As Stacey said, we put the central access road is very important to us for operations and maintenance, where the northeasternmost access point is very important to fire and emergency services to have their ring road, as we'd call it, in for Wareham-based projects. So for operations and maintenance, that center road is important to us, and then for safety, the outer road is important to the town. They're both important to us during construction because we can get a really nice in and out flow as materials are dropped off and whatnot. So it's certainly our preference to keep them both. And I think if I don't keep them both, I'm either hurting my operations and maintenance group or I'm hurting police and fire. But if it's really important to the board, we can connect the roads and only have one access. But I guess I would ask to keep the 2. We put them there, not haphazardly.
I kind of agree with this configuration. I know in other projects, fire has asked for a complete perimeter road, and that seems like a waste of space. I think this is a better alternative myself. I don't know if you had fire look at it.
We have sent it to fire, and actually, I'm not sure, Ken, if you received anything from them, but the indications we had, I think for all 3 projects, 27 charge and these 2, was that they were all set, but I can certainly follow up with them if you haven't heard directly from them.
They haven't sent anything else except the previous report.
Okay, which was the previous report just for 27 charge? Or did it address all of them?
I believe it was just 27.
Okay, I can follow up with Wareham Fire before the next meeting. I know we've spoken with them about it and not heard any inclinations, and they've had the plans since whenever we originally filed back in June. So
I'm looking at a letter from Wareham Fire Department dated June 18th that said they've reviewed all 3 plans and have no comments or requests at this time.
Oh, great.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. I was about to mention that. That's in the materials.
That letter is on town website.
That's right.
I can see the retaining of the center road. That makes a lot of sense. The more northeasterly one, though, that is the one with the steepest grade. And if that could be eliminated and simply connected behind the buffer zone to the center road, you still have a loop around the perimeter in addition to the access you have from the south.
As I said, Charlie and the board, I'm happy to do it if it's something the board will ask for. It's just my preference to keep it how it is, and I shouldn't even say my. It's our project team's preference to keep it how it is, but I'll go with the direction of the board.
Okay. I just brought up these boards for the board's consideration. That's all.
Fair enough.
I do think that we need to have a little bit more detail on each of those access points, simply for the slope and the potential for runoff coming down and erosion. Because once you begin to put a gravel roadway on a roughly 6.7% slope, which is the northeast one, there's a good potential for erosion there.
Yep, and that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep, and that was for the board's information, Charlie's comment 6. So 6, 7, and 8 dealt with kind of plans and stormwater. And we'd ask that the board allow us, as we did for 27 charge, because that was very helpful to coordinate directly with Charlie if we have questions on his comments for that. But we did note that, Charlie, and have it on our to-do list to give some more zoomed in views of those.
Does anyone on the board have a preference of keeping the 2 northern access ways or merging them into a single centralized access way? Is there any strong preference of any of the board members?
I don't have strong feelings either way.
Oh, me
As
either.
long as the drainage calculations and runoff works.
Either way is fine.
All right, well, why don't-
if that works.
Why don't we leave it at this? As Stacy said, items 6, 7, and 8, which we don't need to really dive into in too much detail here, are of a technical nature. So if it's okay with the board, we'll let our engineers converse with Charlie directly. And if out of that conversation, perhaps it makes more sense to centralize a single access, we could do that. If that 6.7% graded road does prove really difficult to maintain, then perhaps we'll do it. But I think we'll kind of let's work through it over the next couple weeks and we'll see what we come back with. Does that sound all right?
I don't have a problem with that. Anybody?
Oh, sounds good.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
Agreed.
That's acceptable to me, George.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
So-
suppose we should ask you.
Number 5, just asked that Borrego explain why the overhead wire connections from the existing power line easement to the project site. So this is something where for this particular site, actually, let me get to a plan that shows the connections. So for this site, Borrego would like to stay overhead. So this is obviously the southern portion of the solar, the existing high voltage lines, and then the interconnection information here, which is proposed as utility poles overhead. I think given the context, adjacent, setback from Tohonet Road, but adjacent to the existing high voltage lines, it's appropriate for overhead here. I guess that's the preference, but wanted to discuss with the board.
Yeah, I think similar to Charge Pond, where there was a specific, we were not right on, but pretty close to a public way. I think I was very, very willing to put this equipment on the ground as a general design criteria. We try not to keep the stuff on the ground. I think there's just more that can go wrong. And so in an environment like this that has 2 high voltage transmission lines as well as 2 medium voltage distribution lines already in that right of way, I personally didn't feel like the addition of those 8 or 10 poles was material. But obviously, as we've proved before, we can put this equipment on the ground if it's really important, but my preference is to keep it on the poles. So I'd certainly defer to the board. If you guys would like to urge us one way or another, we're happy to comply.
What sheet is that on?
This is C 3.2.
The power line easement to the utility poles run.
Say that again?
How far north of the existing power line easement would your new poles run?
They're south of the utility easement.
They cross the
They're
utility
not on,
onto your site.
they go
They
go underground. Yeah, they go underground. Stacy, could you roll to the right a little bit? The medium voltage trench. They go underground. Oop. So if you could see that medium voltage trench coming off the corner of the array, it kind of looks like a double parallel line right there. That's underground, and then it comes above ground for those poles 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 right there. So that's about, we'll call it 170 to 200 feet to that first pole off to Hunnett Road, and it looks to be about 20 feet south of the right of way, running almost parallel to it.
What sheet are you looking at now?
3.2, C3.2.
So you're coming all the way out to Tyhonet Road with the poles?
No, sir.
Okay.
Right, the poles end right there. Yeah, the nearest pole to Hunnett Road I'm just eyeballing it, will be about 200 feet. If you kind of take the 175-foot setback up where the trees are, where it says Basin 1, if you kind of take that as a rule of thumb, extend it down, we're probably closer to 225 feet, I'd say.
Talking about on the south side of the utility easement?
Yes, sir. Yeah, there's no poles that are going on the north side. Everything's to the south.
Utility pole typical and proposed overhead
Yep.
wire. It's just
Yep.
those?
That's it. Those existing lines that you see off to Hunnett Road, Stacy, if you can move to those are for the existing projects that have already been approved and installed. Actually, I should correct myself. The heavier black one to the east has already been installed. The one just to the west is being adjusted to ground mounted and screened. That's what we were in front of you guys maybe a month ago. Maybe it was 2 weeks ago. I can't really tell. But those poles those equipment will be on the ground for the second one in, and then our stuff is another 200 feet away. That's the reason we lean toward above ground, because we just frankly felt that nobody would see them or no one would mind, considering the large quantity of poles that are already in that right of way.
Oh, okay, I see better. So they will basically be screened by existing. For one thing, being far enough east. And the
I would imagine so, yes.
The only reason I asked that question is because it's in section 595 in terms of documentation to be presented to the board. That's all. Now that we know the explanation, personally, I have no problem with it.
mm-hmm.
And we'll certainly, provide a letter to the board that summarizes in response to Charlie's comments, so we can memorialize that therein as well.
Okay.
All right, and then I think the last item to discuss, or the last two items, so 6 and 7 I'll skip because we can coordinate with Charlie, and those I think will be readily addressed. 8 we can also readily address. This relates to the pitch of a culvert. We'll correct that. Charlie, you'd also mentioned a small, trying to prevent small animal entry, which wasn't something that we'd seen before. And I just was hoping to discuss, and we can coordinate directly as well, but what the intent is or the concern is. I guess my only initial thought was we just don't want to do something that's going to increase buildup of material at the edge of the pipe, or potentially trap herpetofauna or anything like that. I don't know if you want to discuss it now or if we should just coordinate directly.
Do that. If you want to come up with a particular design feature or something for that, that's fine. I'm not considering that a large animal is going to go through the pipe, but we don't want to see it get plugged up with an animal that can't get out for one reason or another.
Okay.
That's the other reason for putting pitch on the pipe, so that you won't build up sediment as well.
Right. Yep. Yeah, and we can certainly rectify that. And then the last comment dealt with the decommissioning plan, which, yep, we will submit. So once the kind of final plan, the plans are in their final form and the module counts are updated, we'll submit a decommissioning plan that follows the approach for 27 Charge Pond, as Charlie noted in his comment. And those were the comments. I'm not sure if there are other items that the board would like to address. Otherwise, I think, we have some action items on our end to address, and then meet with the board again at its November 23rd hearing.
All right. Is there anyone out there that wishes to make public comment on where we're at so far? I'm not hearing anyone, so. The board have any other comments they want to give them some direction with?
No, I'm all set.
I have none at this time, George.
I have a
So,
question.
yeah,
Could you point out where the battery storage is on this site?
Let me share my screen again.
I would if I knew how, Ken.
So actually, it's probably better if I go to the index just so you can see it all. All right, so the equipment areas are along the central access way. If you can see my cursor, these 4 areas.
And there'll be batteries in each one of those areas?
I'm sorry?
I believe
There will be battery systems in each one of those areas?
Zach, is there battery in each of them? Or just the
Yes.
just the northernmost. It's all transformers. Actually, excuse me, I'm reading it wrong. There are containers, battery containers at each equipment pad. The northernmost has kind of a double dose of them, so that's the bigger pad. But yes, at each one there'll be 2 shipping size containers at the equipment pad.
And just to follow up on a previous observation about training for fire and equipment, I did speak to the chief, and he said a lot of these systems come with their own fire suppression system built in, and they have been trained, and the best thing to do is not to spray water on them, just let them burn.
That's, well, not anticipated. That's certainly the biggest direction we're going to give the fire department is step back and don't let anything spread outside the array. Take care of the outer bounds. But yeah, it all has internal fire suppression systems and internal fire alarm and monitoring and whatnot. So yeah, I think Ken and I and Stacy work pretty well on the charge pond approval decision, where I think we've got some really nice language to ensure that training is covered, as well as any training costs and whatnot that are not the burden of the town. So I'm happy with where we're at.
We appreciate it. Anything else? Any other direction you wish to send them with?
Just a question, George, if I may.
Sure.
Each of the 3 access points, we'll stick with those for the moment. Has the Conservation Commission seen the revised plan that shows these?
Yes, so
I don't-
we've sent the commission the same package that we sent to the planning board, the revised plans, hydrology, and transmittal letter. We have not met with the commission since submitting them. So we'll be at their next hearing to discuss.
Okay. I would think that would be of some concern where it's closest to the wetlands and you've got slopes that are coming right down toward Tyonet Road in all three cases. So they should want to pay attention to that.
Yeah, and in terms of this wetland system, although it's kind of shown as a wetland, it's actually an active cranberry bog with Tyonet Road and the berms along the edge. So hopefully there shouldn't be a concern, you know, with that. It's similar to Tyonet East and 160 Tyonet up to the northeast. And then for the southerly one, we've stayed outside, you know, of jurisdiction. But yes, certainly we'll be discussing that with the commission and any other questions they have or comments.
There's no question when the activity is related directly to the cranberry bogs, but in this particular case, it's totally distinct and separate from it.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying that it's not jurisdictional. It's certainly jurisdictional. I'm just saying in terms of the character of this wetland, if you're not familiar with the site, you might look at this plan, and I know you are, Charlie, but you might look at this plan and think, oh, a nice wooded swamp, but it's an actively managed cranberry bog along the edge, you know, here, and it could be on the opposite side.
That's all I had, George.
You're muted, George.
Sorry, I muted myself. You'll forward us a continuance for this project as well?
Yes.
Thank you. And can I get a motion from the board? November 23rd, I believe is the date.
Motion to continue the public hearing on the site plan review, I'm sorry, on 150 Tyonet Road until the 23rd of November.
Second.
Motion was made by Richard, seconded by Mike. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. See you guys in a few weeks.
You have the scorecard on the agenda about what's coming forward, and I see the zoning amendment listed for November 30th. Is that to be a public hearing?
Yes, that's a public hearing.
Are we going to get a glimpse of that before it lands?
Yes, it's been submitted to the Board of Selectmen, and when they send it to us, we'll have it to present on the website.
Okay. And that's the public hearing to for town meeting, correct?
Right, that's the town meeting that's set for, potentially set in the beginning of December.
I thought the last date I saw was the end of December, but
Well, that's the regular fall town meeting is set for December 28th.
oh, okay. This is a special. Yeah, I'm sorry.
So essentially, we'll have one planning board meeting in December, if anything has to be cleaned up before the end of the year, on December 14th.
Okay. Is there anything further this evening?
Motion to adjourn, George?
That sounds right. Unless you want to hang out for a while. I don't know. There's a motion. Is there a second?
There was. Second.
Oh, thank you, Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night, everyone.
And good meeting.